Hi, this is an unboxing video for the classic rock tarot cards. This is a deck that is an independently produced deck. It is by Anthony, I think, Parisi. It came in just your standard kind of tuck box here. That's what it looks like. That's the other side there, showing this is the back of the cards. You know, I'm going to have to get another container for this box because for the cards, because this box probably isn't going to live up to the use and abuse that I'm probably going to put it through. It is, like I said, an independent deck, so it was a little bit pricier, but we know that's how the cookie crumbles. And then, of course, to get it shipped to Canada was just as much as the deck, which is silly, but that's the way things are. I don't make the mail, so what are you going to do? So I thought I would give you a quick walkthrough, a bit of a quick review. I didn't do an unboxing video because when I got it, I opened it right away. I was really excited. It does not come with a book. There's not a little white book or anything in this thing. I could see with this deck that, you know, some people might just collect it for collector's purposes, whereas other people might actually use it. So we've got the back here of the card. It's a nice kind of, it's a little bit more satin kind of finish. The cardstock is, I would say, a little thicker than the Llewellyn deck, but it's still pretty flexible. And then you've got this nice kind of like matte sort of finish on the front. So let's go take a walk through of the deck. So it came, when it came, it was not in order. It was out of order. So I put it in order just to make it easier for the walkthrough. So with the major arcana, this person's picked various, you know, kind of rock icons and figures, and I can kind of see most of them why they were picked. When we get to the minor arcana, you'll see that they stop kind of matching what the card meanings are. I think that this person that made it does have a knowledge of tarot, just because the major arcana do kind of match with things. But I think the minor arcana, some of them could have been better picks, but that is just my particular opinion. As for the artwork itself, you'll see it's kind of like a caricature type style. I like it. I think it's nice. It's very colorful. It's very cartoony. I like these, you know, guitar sort of necks here as the frame. I enjoy that as well. I think it's, you know, a well put together illustration wise deck. And let's go through and look. So we've got the Fool here with Axel, and I can see why somebody would pick him as the Fool for sure, rushing in without thinking about things. That's for sure. I might have put him somewhere else in the deck, but I can definitely see why people might put him as the Fool. For the Magician, we have Jimi Hendrix, somebody who definitely did change the face of music, that's for sure. And here you have, it's interesting, his smoke is the lemniscate above him, which I think is kind of a cool touch. We have Stevie Nicks for the High Priestess. Again, a good choice. I totally would have picked that. I think it's interesting how they put the moon on her beret there. I think that's also a nice touch. For the Empress, we have Janis Joplin, definitely one of the kind of more popular female figures in classic rock, that's for sure. We have Mick Jagger as the Emperor, and you've got all these little crowns in the background. The Hierophant, we have George Harrison. George Harrison, I would say, you know, is kind of a good pick because he's a little more traditional. You know, you don't hear George Harrison getting into a lot of trouble. You have kind of like the sun and the moon here, which I think is very interesting in the background. 6, the Lovers, John Lennon and Yoko Ono. For the 7, the Chariot, you have Rob Halford from Judas Priest, who likes to ride it on his motorcycle. Zakk Wylde for Strength. Now, I'm not really sure why they picked Zakk Wylde for Strength. I mean, I can certainly see he's kind of, you know, he looks like a fierce mountain man, that's for sure. But to me, it's more about like inner strength, but I can kind of see why they picked that. The Hermit, Brian Wilson, of course. He was a recluse for many years, so that definitely makes sense. The Wheel of Fortune, Pete Townsend with his swooping arm motions. Pat Benatar for Justice, definitely something she sings about. She's a very fierce kind of woman. Brian Jones is the Hangman. You know, if you don't know in classic rock sort of history, Brian Jones famously drowned in his pool, so you can kind of see why they picked him there. Ozzy for Death, which I think is a nice pick there. So I definitely think, you know, the Prince of Darkness, good choice. Temperance, Paul McCartney. It took me a little bit to get Wings, haha. He's got wings in the background. But, you know, Paul McCartney kind of has this squeaky clean kind of reputation, so I can definitely see why they put that there. Gene Simmons for the Devil, of course. He's the demon. This one was a bit of a weird choice for me. The tower just says who's next, and I guess they're like, who's going to die next? I would have picked a person. I actually kind of would have put Axel here just because with the riots and everything, and his, you know, sudden erratic behavior at times, especially in the past. I would have put him more as tower, but, you know, it's not my deck, not my choice. The Star, Ringo Starr, makes sense. Keith Moon is the moon. Jerry Garcia for the Sun. I like this pick. I think that this is, you know, he's like that kind of happy, hippie, peace and love, you know, chill out, summer kind of energy from Jerry Garcia. Judgment, Rob Zombie. I'm not too sure about that pick, but okay. And then we have The World, Bono. Makes sense. You know, he's kind of like a, you know, he travels around the world, is kind of a bit of a statesman for rock and roll. He's definitely concerned about humanitarian issues, so I can definitely see that pick. Now, here's where things diverge. So we get into the suits, and the people that they pick have pretty much nothing to do with the meaning of the card. So I thought to myself, well, how am I going to read with this deck on a practical level? I mean, you know, it's nice to collect, but I actually like to use my decks. I don't like them to just sit on the shelf. So I thought, you know what, it might be interesting to read with this deck with both the meaning of the card and, you know, some of the correlations that happen to go with some of these people. So I'm developing kind of a rock star spread to use for this particular deck, which I will, you know, put in the Etsy shop later, but I'm still working on it and thinking about it. But I'm going to do a walkthrough and just kind of show you who's here, who's what, and you can give me some of your opinions. So we have Randy Rhoads for the Ace of Swords. Paul and McCartney and John Lennon. See, it's interesting because they've already appeared in the deck. And then also there's another card later on with the Beatles. And I think there's other people that are not in this deck that could have easily been in this deck, and you don't have to put them in several times. We have Cream for the Three of Swords. Slash for the Four of Swords. Stevie Ray Vaughan, Five of Swords. The Edge, Six of Swords. Robert Plant for the Seven of Swords. David Lee Roth for the Eight of Swords. Steven Tyler for the Nine of Swords. The Ramones for the Ten of Swords. Jimmy Page is the Page of Swords. Haha, Page. Kirk Hammett is Knight, and he's another one that appears twice because they also have Metallic in this deck. Freddie Mercury for Queen. He's the Queen of Swords. I think that's funny that he's a queen. And Elvis Presley is King of Swords. And I understand why he's also a king. Like, you know, king of rock and roll kind of thing. Ace of Wands is Brian May. John Bonham for the Two of Swords, or Two of Wands, pardon me. I think he would have been better as a three of something just because of the Led Zeppelin kind of the symbol there. Steve Harris for the Three of Wands. See, the Beatles are the Four of Wands. Rick Nielsen for the Five of Wands. Dave Mustaine, Six of Wands. Alice Cooper for the Seven of Wands. Joe Elliott for the Eight of Wands. Roger Daltrey, Nine of Wands. The Monkees for the Ten of Wands. Buddy Holly for the Page of Wands. David Gilmour, the Knight of Wands. Tina Turner is the Queen of Wands. I think that's a pretty good pick for sure. And Ronnie James Dio for the King of Wands. I think also he's good as a king just because of the enormous influence he had on heavy metal. Ace Frehley for the Ace of Cups. Haha, of course. The Two of Cups, Anne and Nancy Wilson, I think is an interesting choice because it speaks to love that's more like sisterly love. Three of Cups is Spinal Tap. Four of Cups is Metallica. See, Metallica comes up again. They have like, you know, having them a couple of times seems a bit strange. Dave Grohl for the Five of Cups. Scott Ian for the Six of Cups. Phil Lynott. This is the only person I had to look up. He's in Thin Lizzy. That was the only person I didn't know. He is the Seven of Cups. Yeah. Eric Clapton is the Eight of Cups. Bon Scott for the Nine of Cups. Keith Richards, the Ten of Cups. I like how they make him kind of dead, like blue here. Ron Wood for the Page of Cups. Eddie Van Halen, the Knight of Cups. Lita Ford for the Queen of Cups. I like that they did put some women in this deck. Rock and roll tends to, unfortunately, be overly dominated by men, but I'm glad that they put some pretty strong females in this deck. And Jim Morrison for the King of Cups. The Lizard King, of course. The Ace of Pentacles, we have Lemmy. I think he should have been the Ace of Swords because he loves, you know, the Ace of Spades. The equivalent of Spades is the Swords, but whatever, he's an ace. Neil Young for the Two of Pentacles. Rush for the Three of Pentacles. This one makes sense, you know, with their logo and the three of them there. Tony Iommi for the Four of Pentacles. Tom Petty for the Five of Pentacles. Nikki Sixx for the Six of Pentacles, again because of the star, the pentagram there. Bruce Springsteen is Seven of Pentacles. Bob Dylan is the Eight of Pentacles. Billy Gibbons, the Nine of Pentacles. Dimebag Darrell, the Ten of Pentacles. Angus Young, he's the Page of Pentacles. Peter Frampton is the Knight of Pentacles. We have Joan Jett as the Queen of Pentacles, another good choice, I think. And then the last king is Johnny Cash, you know, and he's pretty important too. So it's an interesting deck. Like I said, I think the majors definitely make sense. I don't know about the minors. I see, you know, some people were picked because of their name to go in certain places. You know, most of the queens are women, so that makes sense. And Freddie Mercury, you know, being a queen, that makes sense too. But I don't know. I'm going to have to work with this a little more to see how well it actually reads. As a working deck. I mean, I think it's interesting as a novelty deck to kind of collect, but it is, you know, I don't necessarily know how well it's going to work per se, but I do really like the artwork. I think the cards are really nice. It's a nice cardstock. It's that nice balance between being able to shuffle it, but also being a little more sturdy as well. And the finish on it is really nice. So, you know, I think this is an interesting deck if you're into kind of rock the way I am. I think I would have picked different people for different things, but I think we all have our own opinions about that kind of stuff. And I feel like there's some people who are really just missing from the deck. Like there's no Kurt Cobain in there, which, you know, I'm not a huge fan of Kurt Cobain, but I think he definitely made an impact on the history of rock, and that's kind of not in there. And there's probably a few others that could have been in there that aren't included in there. But, you know, we're all going to pick our different things, right? Let me know what you think of this deck. Is this something that's on your list? Is it something you would get? Is it something you'd pass by? What are your thoughts? Let me know. As always, peace, love, and rock and roll.